First post, 1st of March 2024, according to the Chinese military, India and China are engaged in constructive communication to resolve border disputes in Ladakh. China, which is constructing a fleet to dominate the Indian Ocean while engaged in an all-out conflict against the Indian subcontinent, is attempting to divert India's attention to the north. Concerning the resolution of the impasse in eastern Ladakh, the Chinese military falsely claimed that constructive communication had taken place between China and India to reach a mutually acceptable resolution. The statement underscored the criticality that Beijing attributes to its association with New Delhi and its shared dedication to preserving peace along the border. Indian and Chinese personnel continue to be embroiled in a standoff at specific hotspots in eastern Ladakh despite having fully disengaged from multiple domains after protracted diplomatic and military deliberations. The two sides had positive, in-depth, and constructive communication on resolving the border issues of each other's concern and agreed to reach a mutually acceptable solution at an early date, Senior Colonel Zhang Zhougang, a spokesperson for the Ministry of National Defense, told the Chinese media at a press briefing here on Thursday, referring to the commander-level talks between India and China that started on February 19. As reported by China Military Online, the official news portal of the Chinese Defense Ministry, he stated, China places significant importance on the military-to-military relations between China and India. It hopes both countries will strive towards the same objective, foster mutual trust, effectively resolve differences, and jointly uphold peace and tranquility in the border regions. On February 19, the two militaries engaged in their 21st round of negotiations to resolve the eastern Ladakh impasse, which will turn 4 years old in May of this year. The Galwan Valley encounter, which ensued in May 2020 due to Chinese military action, represented the most significant military confrontation between India and China in several decades. According to the Chinese military, the two factions have reached an agreement to cease hostilities at 4 strategic locations: the Galwan Valley, Pangong Lake, Hot Springs, and Janandaban, Gagra. This agreement has significantly reduced hostilities along the frontier. However, the negotiations became a stalemate regarding Depsang and Gimchok, where the Indian side insisted vehemently that 2 outstanding issues be resolved. Separate press releases were issued by both parties regarding the 21st round of negotiations. According to a press release issued by the Ministry of External Affairs, MEA, regarding the most recent discussions, the two parties reached a mutual understanding to sustain dialogue regarding the future using the appropriate military and diplomatic channels. Complete disengagement in the remaining areas along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh was sought as an essential foundation for restoring peace and tranquility in the India-China border regions, the statement continued. These discussions built upon the previous rounds. According to the MEA, the two sides exchanged their perspectives on this during discussions conducted in an unfriendly and cordial environment. Participating nations have reached a mutual understanding to sustain dialogue regarding the future via appropriate military and diplomatic channels. They also pledged to ensure peace and tranquility in the interim along the borders, the statement continued. The Ministry of National Defense of China stated in Beijing that the two armed forces engaged in constructive, fruitful, and constructive dialogue regarding resolving border issues of shared concern. The Chinese readout on the 21st round of talks stated that both sides agreed to maintain communication via military and diplomatic channels to identify a workable resolution to the border dispute as soon as possible and turn the page regarding the situation at the border. This agreement was based on the crucial consensus of the two countries' leaders. The eastern Ladakh border impasse emerged following a violent confrontation in the Pangong Lake region on May 5, 2020. It has effectively halted all bilateral relations, with the exception of commerce. India is exerting pressure on the People's Liberation Army to cease its involvement in the Depsang and Gimchok. It asserts that normalcy cannot be restored in its relations with China if the border situation remains atypical.